Father, I come to you now, and I bring this moment just as it is, unfinished, tired, maybe a little bruised around the edges. Before I say anything else, I want to simply be still, to stop performing, stop pretending, stop holding my shoulders so high and so tight. I want to breathe out the version of me that has been trying to hold everything together and breathe in the truth that you are already here. If you are listening to this right now, wherever you are, in your car, in your kitchen, lying in the dark, unable to sleep, sitting in a place no one else you drove to just to be alone for a while, let this be a doorway, not into more effort, not into another thing you have to get right, just into a quiet room where it is safe to say the truth. I am tired. I don't know if I can keep doing this. I have been carrying something for so long that I have forgotten what it feels like to put it down. God, you already know. You knew before the words formed. You saw the exhaustion behind the eyes this morning. You saw the moment today when the smile didn't quite reach all the way, when I'm fine was said out of habit rather than honesty. You saw the late night scrolling that was really just avoiding the silence, because the silence has started to feel heavy. You saw the prayer that got started and then trailed off, because there didn't seem to be words left. You are not shocked by any of it. You are not disappointed in the weariness. You are not waiting for a stronger version of this person to show up before you draw near. So here, in this unhurried space, I ask you to meet us exactly where we are. Not where we should be, not where we used to be, not where we hope to be again someday. Here, now, in the middle of the tiredness, in the middle of the doubt, in the middle of wondering whether it's even worth it to keep trying. There is a kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. It settles into the bones, into the way a person carries their own name, into the quiet moments between tasks, when the mask slips just slightly. Some of us are tired from holding a family together. Some of us are tired from a body that has been fighting something invisible to everyone else. Some of us are tired of praying for the same thing for so long that we've started to wonder if God stopped listening somewhere along the way. Some of us are tired of being strong for everyone else and having no one ask how we are actually doing. And some of us aren't sure exactly why we're tired. We just know that something in us has quietly been asking, for a while now, whether we have the strength to keep going. Father, for the person who feels this way today, I ask you to come close, not with pressure to feel better immediately, not with a formula, just with your presence, steady, unhurried, and kind. There is a weariness that comes from disappointment, the ache of watching something you hoped for slip through your fingers again. There is a weariness that comes from waiting, the particular exhaustion of praying the same prayer for months, for years, and hearing what feels like silence in return. There is a weariness that comes from responsibility, carrying people, carrying bills, carrying decisions that never seem to stop needing to be made. There is a weariness that comes from grief, the kind that doesn't announce itself loudly anymore, but sits quietly underneath everything, showing up at unexpected moments, in a song, in a smell, in an empty chair. And there is a weariness that comes simply from being human in a world that rarely slows down long enough to let anyone rest. You know which one this is for the person listening right now. I don't have to name it correctly for you to understand it. You see past the words we would use to describe it and into the actual weight of it. Search the depths of this heart, God, the way only you can, and meet what you find there, not with judgment, but with mercy. For the one who feels like giving up on a marriage that has grown cold and distant, I ask for your tenderness. For the one who feels like giving up on a dream that has cost more than they ever expected and given back so little, I ask for your wisdom. For the one who feels like giving up on their faith, wondering if any of this is even real, wondering if prayers actually go anywhere, I ask you not to be offended by the honesty, but to meet the doubt with your patient presence, the way you have always met honest hearts throughout history. For the one who feels like giving up on themselves, who has run out of grace for their own mistakes and failures, I ask you to remind them what grace actually means, that it was never something we earned in the first place. There is also a quieter, less obvious weariness, the exhaustion of comparison, of scrolling through the curated lives of others and feeling, without quite meaning to, that everyone else has figured something out that we haven't. That everyone else's marriage looks easier, everyone else's children are better behaved, everyone else's career is moving forward while ours feels stuck in place. God, that particular ache is so common and so rarely spoken aloud. I bring it before you now. Free us from the exhausting habit of measuring our unseen struggles against someone else's edited highlights. Remind us that you are not comparing our race to anyone else's. You only ever asked us to run the one marked out specifically for us. There is the weariness of the person who has done everything they know how to do, sought counsel, prayed, tried again and again, and still finds themselves in the same difficult place. That kind of tired carries a particular sting because it isn't laziness or lack of effort. It's the ache of having genuinely tried and still not seeing the change hoped for. God, please don't let that person believe their effort was wasted. Nothing offered to you in sincerity is ever wasted, even when the results aren't yet visible. And there is the tiredness that comes simply from being misunderstood, from carrying a burden that others can't quite see, and therefore can't quite honor. The friend who assumes everything is fine because the outside looks composed. The family member who says, just stay positive, without understanding how much strength it took just to get out of bed. God, you are not like that. You do not require us to explain ourselves before you take our pain seriously. You already understand fully, and that alone is worth more than any human explanation ever could be. For the parent who feels like giving up because the child they love keeps making choices that break their heart, comfort them. For the person in recovery who feels like giving up because the old patterns still whisper louder than they'd like to admit, strengthen them. For the caregiver who feels like giving up because there is no end in sight to the exhaustion of caring for someone else, sustain them. For the person grieving who feels like giving up because the world expects them to have moved on by now, hold them gently and give them permission to still be healing. And for the one who cannot even name what it is they want to give up on, who just knows that something in them has grown quiet, has grown small, has started to wonder what the point of all this striving really is, draw near to them in a way only you can. Let them sense, even faintly, that they are not invisible, that their weariness has not gone unnoticed by heaven. Here is where I want to bring something before you, God, and I ask for the grace to actually mean it and not just say it. I want to lay down the belief that everything depends on me. I want to lay down the exhausting posture of trying to control outcomes I was never meant to control in the first place. I want to lay down the fear that if I stop pushing so hard, everything will fall apart. I want to lay down the resentment that has been quietly building toward people who don't seem to be carrying their share. I want to lay down the disappointment I've been nursing toward you, if I'm honest, for the things that haven't turned out the way I hoped. This is not easy to do. Surrender rarely is. It doesn't feel like relief in the moment. It feels like loss, like letting go of the steering wheel while the road is still moving beneath us. But you have never asked us to surrender because you wanted to take something from us. You have asked us to surrender because you wanted to carry what was never ours to carry alone in the first place. So I place my plans in your hands, even the ones I've been gripping tightly. I place my timeline in your hands, even though it feels like it's moving too slowly or has already run out. I place my relationships in your hands, the ones that are struggling, the ones that have ended, the ones I don't know how to fix. I place my fears about the future in your hands, the quiet what-ifs that visit in the middle of the night. I place my need to understand everything in your hands, Because I don't, and I may not for a long time, and I am learning, slowly, imperfectly, that trusting you does not require full understanding. I place the version of myself I thought I'd be by now in your hands, the career I imagined, the family I pictured, the timeline I quietly expected my life to follow. So much of this weariness comes from measuring where I am against where I thought I'd be, and I confess that comparison has cost me more peace than I realized. Free me from that invisible ruler, God. Let me measure my life instead by your faithfulness within it, not by a plan I drew up long before I understood how life actually unfolds. I place my need to be understood in your hands. I have spent so much energy wanting people to see clearly what I'm carrying, wanting my effort to be noticed, wanting my exhaustion to be validated. Some of that longing is human and reasonable. But when it becomes the thing I'm chasing, it leaves me depleted in a different way. Let it be enough some days that you see. Let your understanding be sufficient even when others isn't. I place my regrets in your hands too. The conversations I wish I'd had differently, the years I wish I'd used more wisely, the chances I let slip by out of fear. I cannot rewrite what has already happened, but I can release my grip on it and ask you to redeem what remains ahead. Teach me, God, that surrender is not the same as giving up. Giving up says, there is no hope, so I will stop. Surrender says, I don't have the strength to carry this anymore, so I am handing it to the one who does. One is despair, the other is faith, wearing the clothes of exhaustion. Help me see the difference clearly today, especially in the moments when they feel identical from the inside. For the person listening who has been white-knuckling their way through this season, gripping tightly to control, because letting go feels terrifying, loosen those hands, Father. Not all at once, if that's too much, but enough to breathe. Enough to remember that you were holding this long before we ever started trying to hold it ourselves. And now, even here, even in the tiredness, I want to thank you. Not because everything is resolved, not because the ache has disappeared, but because gratitude has a way of loosening what fear has tightened, and I need that loosening today. Thank you for this breath and the next one after it, and the one after that, ordinary, unremarkable, and yet entirely a gift. Thank you that I woke up this morning, even if getting up felt like more effort than it should have. Thank you for the roof overhead, however humble. Thank you for people who have shown love in ways I may have taken for granted. Thank you for the seasons in the past when I didn't understand what you were doing and later found out it was mercy in disguise. Thank you for doors that closed that I was too heartbroken to be grateful for at the time, and that I now recognize as protection. Thank you for doors that opened that I never could have opened myself. Thank you for the truth that you have carried me through hard things before. I may not always remember it in the moment, but there is a track record here of nights that felt unsurvivable that I did, in fact, survive. Of seasons that felt like the end that turned out to be a hinge point rather than a conclusion. Thank you for that history, because it becomes evidence for today. If you carried me then, you have not suddenly become unable to carry me now. Thank you too for the things I don't yet understand, the unanswered questions, the prayers still waiting, the situations that don't make sense from where I'm standing. I don't thank you because I enjoy the confusion. I thank you because I trust that you see the whole shape of the story, even the parts hidden from me right now, and I would rather trust your full view than my partial one. Thank you for the small mercies that are easy to overlook when weariness has taken over. A kind word from a stranger, a meal that was actually enjoyed instead of rushed through, a moment of unexpected laughter in a hard week, a song that seemed to arrive at exactly the right time. Thank you for sunlight through a window. Thank you for the particular comfort of a familiar place. Thank you for memory, even the bittersweet kind, because it means love actually happened, even the love that has since ended or changed shape. Thank you for the people who have stayed imperfectly, but faithfully. For the friend who checks in even when there's nothing new to report. For the family member whose steadiness has been a quiet gift. For the stranger, once who did something kind at exactly the moment it was needed and never knew how much it mattered. Thank you for placing people like that along the way, evidence that you often show up through others, not just in private moments of prayer. Thank you for the version of me that has grown through hard seasons before, more compassionate because of pain once endured, more patient because of waiting once required, more grateful because of loss once grieved. I would not have chosen these teachers, but I can thank you for what they built in me even now. And thank you simply for still being God even on the days I struggle to feel it. Thank you for not requiring my full understanding or even my full confidence in order to remain faithful to me. There is a heart here today, God, maybe more than one, that needs healing in places no one else can see. Places that have been bruised by disappointment, by rejection, by loss, by shame that has lingered far longer than it should have. I ask you to go into those places gently. Not to force healing before someone is ready, but to sit with the pain the way a comforting presence sits with a friend, simply there, simply steady. Heal the parts of the heart that have grown guarded because trust was broken before. Heal the parts that flinch at hope because hope has been disappointed too many times. Heal the shame that whispers that this weariness, this struggle, this desire to give up makes someone weak or unworthy or somehow less faithful than they should be. That voice is not yours. You have never shamed the weary. You have only ever invited them closer. Heal the exhaustion that has settled into the body from carrying emotional weight for so long. Heal the bitterness that has crept in where disappointment went unaddressed. Heal the loneliness of feeling like no one truly understands what this season has cost. Heal the parts of identity that have been shaken, the ones that used to know exactly who they were and now feel unsure, unsteady, uncertain of their own worth outside of what they produce or achieve or hold together. Restore joy where it has grown thin. Restore laughter that has quieted. Restore the ability to hope without immediately bracing for disappointment. Restore rest, not just physical rest, but the deeper rest of a mind that has stopped running scenarios at 3 a.m. Restore the simple, quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are near, even when circumstances haven't changed. And for the one who is not sure healing is even possible anymore, who has tried and hoped and prayed and still feels stuck, I ask you especially for them. Let this not be the end of the story. Let this weary season be a chapter, not the whole book. Heal too the parts of us that learned, somewhere along the way, that our value is tied to our usefulness, that we are only worth as much as what we can produce, fix, or provide for others. That belief is exhausting to live under, and it was never yours to begin with. Untangle worth from output. Untangle love from performance. Let this heart remember that it was loved before it ever accomplished anything, and it will still be loved on the days it accomplishes nothing at all. Heal the anxious mind that races ahead into futures that haven't happened yet, rehearsing disasters that may never come. Quiet the imagination when it turns against us. Replace the spiral of worst-case scenarios with the steadier practice of bringing each fear to you, one at a time as it arises, rather than carrying the whole weight of imagined futures all at once. Heal old wounds that keep reopening in your new relationships, patterns of mistrust or self-protection that trace back to something painful long before now. You are patient with slow healing. You do not rush what needs time. Walk with us through whatever needs to be gently unlearned, at whatever pace that requires. And for the body that has carried this weariness too, the tight shoulders, the shallow breath, the sleep that doesn't quite restore, I ask for physical relief as well as spiritual. You made us as whole people, body and spirit together, and you care about both. There is a kind of faith that gets talked about as though it always feels triumphant, always feels certain, always walks around with unclouded confidence. But that is not the faith most people actually carry through hard seasons. Real faith, the kind that has weight and substance, often looks like showing up another day without knowing how things will turn out. It looks like praying the same prayer again, even after months of what feels like silence. It looks like choosing, one more time, not to walk away completely, even while carrying real doubt. God, I want to bring that kind of faith before you today, the imperfect, uncertain, still standing kind. For the person who cannot see what you are doing right now, who has looked for evidence of your movement and come up empty, I ask you to be patient with their searching. For the person whose prayer has not yet been answered, not the way they hoped, not in the timing they expected, I ask you to meet their disappointment with tenderness rather than distance. For the person who feels like nothing is changing, like the same struggles keep circling back no matter how hard they try, I ask you to show them, even in a small way, that something is happening beneath the surface that they cannot yet see. Your silence has never meant your absence. I know this is easier to say than to feel, especially when someone has been waiting a long time for a word, a sign, a shift, anything. But even when heaven feels quiet, you have not stepped back. You have not grown tired of this person the way they may have grown tired of waiting. You are not far off, checking in occasionally. You are near, in the very silence itself, doing work that doesn't always announce itself before it's finished. Give the weary heart the strength to keep believing without demanding proof first. Give patience where impatience has taken root. Give perseverance, not the gritted teeth kind that pretends everything is fine, but the honest kind that says, I don't understand this, and I'm still here. That is not weak faith. That is some of the strongest faith there is. I think of how faith has always required this kind of trust in the dark. Trust that walked forward without a map, believing a promise before there was any visible sign of it. Trust that stayed obedient through seasons of famine, of exile, of waiting decades for a promise to come true. Trust that stood at the foot of a cross that looked, in that moment, like the death of every hope, and had no way of knowing that 3 days would change everything. Every person who has ever walked closely with you has, at some point, walked through a season that looked unresolved, unanswered, and unfinished. That is not evidence of your absence. It has always been part of the shape faith takes on the way to something greater. So when the answer doesn't come on the timeline hoped for, help me remember that a delay is not the same as a denial. When circumstances don't shift the way prayed for, help me remember that you are not limited to only working in the ways I can perceive. When it feels like nothing is happening, help me trust that roots grow in the dark long before anything visible breaks through the surface. Some of the most important work you do in a life happens exactly in seasons like this one, quiet, hidden, unglamorous, and yet absolutely necessary for what comes next. I don't need to manufacture certainty I don't feel. I only need to keep showing up honestly, the way I am right now, trusting that showing up is itself a form of faith, maybe the most honest form there is. Now, God, I want to bring this specific moment before, this feeling of wanting to give up. I don't want to rush past it or explain away. I want to actually sit with it in your presence and ask you to meet it honestly. What does it mean, really, to feel like giving up? Sometimes it means a person has reached the end of their own strength, and that is not a failure. That is simply the truth of being human. We were never built to run on our own strength indefinitely. There is a kind of giving up that is actually healthy, giving up on self-sufficiency, giving up on the idea that we have to do this alone, giving up on the exhausting performance of having it all figured out. If that's the giving up being felt right now, God, I welcome it. Let this be the moment that surrender begins, not the moment that hope ends. But there is another kind of giving up that whispers something false, that says this situation is hopeless, that says nothing will ever change, that says it would be easier to simply stop trying altogether. to stop hoping, to stop believing, to walk away from the marriage or the dream or the faith, or even from life itself. God, for anyone carrying that heavier kind of despair right now, I ask you to intervene. I ask you to interrupt that spiral with your presence. I ask you to remind them, in whatever way reaches them most clearly, that this feeling, however overwhelming, is not the final truth about their life. Feelings are real, but they are not always reliable narrators of what is actually possible. Things can change. People do come back from seasons that felt unsurvivable. This chapter is not the whole story. If this is you, and you are in a place where the weight has become genuinely dangerous, where the thoughts have moved from "I'm exhausted" to something darker, please don't carry that alone in silence. There are people who want to help you through this. Real help, real support, and reaching out for it is not weakness. It is one of the bravest things a person can do. For the fear tangled up in wanting to give up, the fear of failure, the fear of disappointing people, the fear of having wasted time or effort, the fear that starting over means admitting something didn't work. I bring that fear before you too. Untangle it, God. Show the difference between fear that protects and fear that paralyzes. Give wisdom to know which battles are still worth fighting, and which ones need to be surrendered, not out of defeat, but out of trust that you have something better ahead, even if it looks different than what was originally planned. And for the hope buried underneath all of this, because there usually still is some, even if it's small, even if it's been quiet for a long time, I ask you to fan that hope back into flame. Not falsely, not with empty promises that everything will turn out exactly as hoped, but with the true promise that you are present, that you are good, that you have not abandoned this person, and that your faithfulness has outlasted every season that once felt unbearable. What does trusting you look like in the middle of wanting to give up? It might look like getting up tomorrow even without feeling ready. It might look like whispering one honest prayer instead of a polished one. It might look like reaching out to someone instead of retreating further into isolation. It might look like simply staying in the marriage one more day while seeking help, staying in the faith one more season while wrestling honestly with doubt, staying alive one more day while reaching for support. Trust doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like the quiet decision to not walk away today. I think too of the many different shapes giving up can take, because it rarely announces itself with one single face. For some, it looks like wanting to give up on a business or a project that has drained every resource and shows little sign of turning around. God, for that person, I ask for clarity, the wisdom to know whether this is a season to push through with renewed strength or a season to release with dignity and look toward what comes next. Either way, let them know that stepping away from something is not the same as failing at life. Some doors close so that others can open. For some, giving up looks like wanting to abandon a health goal, a habit, a hard road toward healing the body or the mind, after trying and slipping back more times than they can count. God, that discouragement with fresh mercy. Let each new attempt be free of the shame attached to last one. Progress rarely moves in a straight line, and a setback is not the same as starting over from nothing. For some, it looks like wanting to give up on a friendship that has grown one-sided, or on family relationships that have caused more pain than peace. Give discernment here, God, the wisdom to know when to keep reaching out gently and when love requires distance for a season. Not every relationship is meant to look the same forever, and releasing an expectation is not the same as abandoning love. For some, it looks like wanting to give up on forgiving someone who hurt them deeply, because forgiveness feels impossible, or because attempting it once already and having the wound reopened made trying again feel pointless. God, forgiveness is not pretending the wound didn't happen, and it is not the same as reconciliation or trust rebuilt overnight. Where forgiveness feels too large a mountain to climb today, would you simply walk beside the person as they take the smallest possible step toward it, even if that step is only being willing, someday, to become willing? For some, it looks like wanting to give up on prayer itself, tired of speaking into what feels like silence, tired of hoping for a response that hasn't come. If that is where someone listening finds themselves, I don't ask you to shame that honesty. I ask you to receive it the way you have always received the honest cries of people throughout Scripture who asked you bluntly how long and where you were. That kind of raw honesty is not the opposite of faith. Often, it is faith's rawest and most sincere expression. Whatever shape this giving up has taken for the person listening, I ask you to meet it specifically, not with a generic answer, but with exactly what is needed for their exact situation, known fully to you even when it hasn't been fully spoken aloud. God, give that quiet decision to whoever needs it right now. Give them the strength for just today, not for the next 10 years, not for every hard day that might come, just for today. That is often all any of us can actually carry. For the person listening alone tonight, in a house that feels too quiet or a life that feels too empty, I ask you to fill that silence with a sense of your nearness. You have never left anyone completely alone, even when it feels that way. For the person who has been waiting for an answer to a prayer they've almost stopped believing will ever come, I ask you to renew their hope today, even just a little. Let it be enough to keep going one more day. For the person who is afraid of tomorrow, afraid of a diagnosis, afraid of a decision, afraid of a conversation they don't know how to have, I ask for your peace to go ahead of them into that fear, softening its edges. For the person who feels utterly exhausted, running on fumes, holding together a life that feels like it's fraying at every seam, I ask for supernatural strength, the kind that doesn't come from another cup of coffee or another burst of willpower, but from you. For the person carrying financial worry, lying awake doing math that never quite adds up, I ask for provision and for wisdom and for peace that isn't dependent on the numbers working out perfectly tonight. For the parent worried about a child, whether that child is small and struggling to sleep through the night, or grown and struggling with choices that break a parent's heart, I ask for your protection over that child and for peace over the parent who cannot control every outcome no matter how much they love. For the person whose heart has been broken by betrayal, by loss, by love that didn't turn out the way they hoped, I ask for tenderness. Grief takes the time it takes. There is no rushing a broken heart into wholeness. For the person who feels far from you, God, who used to feel your presence clearly and now feels a strange distance they can't quite explain, I ask you to close that gap, not because they haven't tried hard enough, but because that is simply who you are, a God who draws near to those who feel far. For the person who is beginning again, after a divorce, after a job loss, after a diagnosis, after any kind of ending that wasn't chosen, I ask for courage. Beginning again is one of the hardest and bravest things a person can do. For the person who has been strong for everyone else for so long that they've forgotten how to let someone be strong for them, I ask you to send someone, a friend, a stranger, a quiet moment of your presence that reminds them it is safe to not be okay sometimes. For the young person trying to figure out who they are, while everyone around them seems to have already decided, I ask for patience with the process of becoming. For the older person wondering if it's too late to change direction, to try again, to hope for something new, I ask you to remind them that your story with them is not finished simply because a certain number of years have passed. For the one recovering from burnout, who gave everything to something, a job, a ministry, a cause, and has nothing left to give, I ask for restoration that doesn't rush. For the one who just received hard news today, whose world shifted in a single conversation, I ask for your presence to be tangible in the first raw hours of that shock. For the one who is doubting whether they are a good parent, a good spouse, a good friend, a good person, measuring themselves against an impossible standard, I ask you to speak truth over the exaggerated inner critic. And for the one who feels like they are the only person in their circle who is struggling right now, while everyone else seems fine, I remind them gently, appearances rarely tell the whole story. Nearly everyone is carrying something. And for the person listening who doesn't fit into any of these descriptions exactly, whose particular weariness is theirs alone, known fully only to you, I ask you to meet them in the specific shape of what they are carrying, because you see it, even words fail to capture it. I want to speak some things now, God, not because saying them makes them automatically feel true, but because faith is often built one honest declaration at a time, even when the heart hasn't fully caught up yet. I choose to trust you even when I cannot see the way forward. I believe you are still working, even in seasons when I cannot see any evidence of movement. I refuse to let fear have the final word over my life, even though fear has been loud lately. My future is not outside your hands, no matter how uncertain it currently looks from where I stand. You are with me in the waiting, not just on the other side of it. I will not allow yesterday's pain to write the whole story of tomorrow's hope. I am not disqualified from your love because I feel like giving up. I am not too far gone, too tired, too disappointed, too human for your grace to reach. Your mercy has never run out, and it is not running out now. I am held even in the moments I don't feel particularly held. I am seen even in the moments I feel invisible. I am not alone even in the moments loneliness feels loudest. I declare that this weariness is not permanent, even if I cannot yet see the shift. I declare that you are not finished with this story, even the parts that currently feel stuck. I declare that your strength is made perfect in weakness, which means this very exhaustion is not disqualifying. It is actually the place where your power tends to show up most clearly. I declare that I can be honestly weary and still be walking in faith. Those two things are not opposites. I will not pretend to have strength I don't currently have. Instead, I will borrow yours. I will not pretend the ache isn't real. Instead, I will bring it honestly before you, trusting that you can handle the full weight of it. I will not measure my worth by how much I've been able to hold together this week. My worth was settled long before this hard season began, and it does not fluctuate with my performance. I declare that weakness is not the opposite of faith. It is often the exact place where faith becomes real instead of theoretical. I declare that asking for help is not failure but wisdom. I declare that I am allowed to rest without guilt, to grieve without a deadline, to heal at the pace healing actually takes rather than the pace I wish it would take. I declare that you are not tired of my honesty, my questions, or my doubts, that you have room for all of it, and none of it disqualifies me from your love. I declare that the enemy of my soul does not get to have the final word through despair, through exhaustion, through the lie that giving up is my only option. I declare that hope, even a flicker of it, is stronger than the darkness trying to convince me otherwise. I declare that I belong to you, and that nothing, not this weariness, not this season, not this fear, can separate me from that belonging. Let these words settle somewhere deep, past the noise of the day, past the doubts that like to argue back. Let them become something true this heart can return to on the harder days ahead, not because saying them made everything instantly easier, but because truth, repeated gently, has a way of slowly reshaping what we believe about our situation and about you. Let's slow down even further here, because I think something in this moment needs quiet more than it needs more words. If you are carrying a specific burden right now, a name, a diagnosis, a decision, a relationship, a fear you haven't said out loud to anyone, take a moment and place that before God. You don't need the right words. You don't need to explain it perfectly. Just bring it the way you would set something heavy down on a table after carrying it too long. Whatever name comes to mind right now, someone you're worried about, someone you're estranged from, someone you miss. Bring that person before the Lord in this quiet moment. He already knows their name. He already knows the ache connected to it. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders drop, even slightly. Remember, in this exact moment, you are not alone. Whatever has felt unbearable in isolation becomes bearable, at least a little, in the presence of the one who has never once looked away from you. There is nothing dramatic required here. No performance. No need to feel a certain way for this moment to count. Sometimes the most sacred prayers are the quietest ones, just breath and presence, and the simple acknowledgement that God is near. Father, I don't know exactly what tomorrow holds. I don't know if the situation that feels so heavy right now will resolve quickly, or slowly, easily, or painfully. I don't know if the answer I'm hoping for is the answer that's coming. I don't know how long this season of weariness will last. But I know who holds tomorrow, even without knowing its details. And there is a strange, steady peace in that, not the peace of having answers, but the peace of trusting the one who does. Give wisdom for the decisions ahead, especially the ones that feel too big to make alone. Give direction where there currently feels like confusion, even if that direction comes slowly, one step revealed at a time rather than the whole map at once. Give patience for the process, because growth and healing rarely happen as quickly as we'd like them to. Give discernment to recognize what is yours leading and what is simply fear talking loudly. Give courage to take the next right step, even a small one, even an imperfect one. Give peace that isn't dependent on circumstances lining up first. Give protection over the road ahead, seen and unseen. Give strength for whatever specifically tomorrow requires, not more than that, just enough for tomorrow, the way you have always provided exactly enough, one day at a time. I don't need to know everything that's coming. I just need to know that I'm not walking into it unaccompanied. There is comfort in remembering that you already stand in tomorrow, the same way you stand here today. Nothing about the future catches you by surprise. The decision I'm dreading, you are already present in. The conversation I don't know how to have, you have already gone ahead of. The diagnosis, the outcome, the answer I'm waiting for, none of it arrives at your desk unexpected. You are not scrambling to respond to my life the way I sometimes am. You are already there and already working, before I even step into it. So I release the pressure of needing to see the whole path before taking the next step. I release the fear that one wrong decision could unravel everything. I release the exhausting habit of trying to predict and control every possible outcome. Instead, I ask simply for enough light to see the next step, and I trust that when I reach it, there will be light again for the one after that. For anyone listening who is facing a specific decision right now, a job to take or leave, a relationship to pursue or release, a move, a treatment, a next chapter they can't quite see the shape of yet, I ask for unmistakable peace to accompany whatever choice aligns with your will, and unrest to accompany whatever doesn't. Let peace be one of the ways you speak, even when it isn't the only way. And for the fear of simply not being able to handle whatever comes, I remind this heart, and my own, that you have never asked us to handle the future in advance, only to meet today with today's grace, and to trust that tomorrow will come with its own portion when it actually arrives. And now, closer to the end of this prayer than the beginning, I want to return to surrender one more time, because I think it's the posture this whole prayer has been circling back toward all along. I release what I cannot control. I release the outcomes I've been trying to manage on my own. I release the people I cannot fix, no matter how much I love them. I release the timeline I had hoped for, and I trust yours instead, even though it's harder to see. I release the need to understand everything before I'm willing to trust you. I release the exhausting posture of carrying what was always meant to be carried together, you and me, rather than by me alone. Let this release be real, God, not just spoken. Let it settle into the actual places where the gripping has been happening. The shoulders, the jaw, the mind that won't stop running through scenarios. Loosen what has been clenched, quiet what has been racing. Let there be an exhale here that is more than physical, an exhale of the soul. I don't have to hold this together by sheer force of will. I never did. You were never asking me to prove my strength. You were only ever asking me to trust yours. I think about who I am becoming through this season, even the parts I wouldn't have chosen. Hard seasons have a strange way of shaping character in ways easy seasons never could. The patience being formed here, the compassion for others who are struggling, the deeper reliance on you instead of on my own limited strength, none of it feels like a gift while it's happening, but I trust that you are not wasting this. I trust that the person coming out the other side of this weariness will carry something valuable that the person who went in did not yet have. I don't say that to minimize how hard this has been, or to rush toward some tidy silver lining before I'm ready for one. Some days, the growth isn't visible yet, and that's all right too. Growth doesn't require my constant awareness of it to still be happening. Seeds don't feel themselves growing underground, and yet the growing is real, and in time it shows. So whatever this season is shaping in me, God, let it be shaped well. Let the weariness produce endurance rather than bitterness. Let the waiting produce trust rather than cynicism. Let the disappointment produce compassion rather than a hardened heart. I cannot control what this season does to me, not entirely, but I can keep bringing it back to you, again and again, and trust you know how to make something good out of what currently feels only hard. As this prayer comes to its close, I want to leave this moment not with more striving, but with rest, not with pressure to feel completely different than I did when this started, but with the simple, steady truth that has been true the whole time. God is near. God sees. God hears. God has not given up on this story, even in the chapter that currently feels the hardest. Thank you for staying close through every word of this prayer. Thank you for meeting the tiredness without flinching. Thank you for holding space for the doubt and the honesty rather than requiring polished faith before drawing near. Thank you for the reminder that wanting to give up does not mean actually being finished. There is still a story being written, still grace being extended, still a tomorrow worth showing up for. If nothing else changes tonight, let this much be settled. This weariness, real as it is not the end of the story. Every hard season before this one eventually gave way to something else. Not always the something hoped for, but something, a shift, a new chapter, evidence that seasons do pass even when they feel endless in the middle of them. This one will pass too. I don't know when or exactly how, but I trust that it will, because you've never once abandoned a story partway through. To whoever is listening and quietly wondering if they have the strength to keep going, you do not need all the strength for the whole road ahead. You only need enough for today, and today's portion has already been provided, even if it doesn't feel like much yet. Small steps still count. Showing up, even imperfectly, still counts. Staying even without full confidence about tomorrow still counts. You have already survived every hard day that came before this one. That is not nothing. That is evidence of a strength that was never entirely your own to begin with. I choose hope again, even in a small way, even if it's just enough hope for today. I choose trust again, not because everything makes sense, but because you have proven trustworthy before and I believe you will again. I choose to rest in what I cannot control and to keep showing up for what I can. I choose, one more time, not to walk away from you, from this life, from the people who need me, from the person I am still becoming. Let peace settle over this heart now, the peace that doesn't need every circumstance to be resolved first. Let there be a quiet confidence, even a small one, that says, I can keep going, not because it will be easy, but because I am not doing it alone. God is with me. I am not alone. I can keep going. There is still hope. I can trust God, not because I have all the answers, but because I know the one who does. And so, in this quiet, unhurried moment, with whatever strength is left and whatever hope has begun to stir again, I say simply, thank you. Thank you for meeting me here. Thank you for not being finished with this story. Thank you for being the kind of God who draws closer, not further away, when someone feels like giving up. Let this be enough for today. Let tomorrow bring what it brings, and let me face it knowing I am held. Amen.